Hey everybody, apologies for being a few minutes late. I think there's like a Bulls game or something. It's a little bit of traffic. The February 29th, 2024 meeting of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is called to order at 6:40 p.m. We'll begin with the call of the roll to establish quorum. Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Driver is present, Commissioner Gomez, Commissioner Loizen, Commissioner Nellis, Commissioner Terry, Commissioner Troncoso. With 6 out of 7 members of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability present, we have a quorum and can conduct the commission's business. The next item of business is public comment. If you would like to share something related to the commission's work on public safety and accountability, you have a few options. You can speak at a public meeting. You can submit public comment in writing by emailing your comments to communitycommissionpubliccomment@cityofchicago.org, or you can bring a copy of your comment to one of the commission's public meetings and give it to someone on the commission or someone on the commission staff. People who wanted to speak during public comment period tonight were asked to submit their names in writing earlier tonight. Names are then drawn at random by a member of the commission staff. Speakers will be called in the order in which their names were drawn. If your name is called to offer public comment, we ask you to approach the microphone and line up in the order in which your name is called. If you cannot approach the microphone, please make one of us aware and we will bring a microphone to you. When it's your turn to speak, please say your name and then spell your name and then offer your comments. Each speaker will have 2 minutes. We have allotted a total of 20 minutes for public comment. Do we have online? We have online speakers? They're not present. Okay. First speaker is Matthew Beasley. Is that the Chris Gentry person? Okay.
Hello. All right.
Hear you.
My name's Matthew Beasley, MATTHEWBEESLEY. So good evening to everybody. My name again is Matthew Beasley, and I am a Chicago police officer, and I work in the 11th District, which is right over the border from here. The 11th District, for those of you who don't know, is the murder capital of the city, and it has been so for the past 10 years. First, before I want to continue, I want to thank Anthony Driver for his comments for ShotSpotter and doing additional research, including about 18% of ShotSpotter alerts were tied to 911 calls. ShotSpotter is used effectively every day. To say it is ineffective or that it does not work is just blind ignorance to reality. I can give example after example where officers have arrested people or found people shot based off of ShotSpotter alerts, including myself twice in just the first week of this year. I challenge anybody in this room to find one officer of the over 11,000 that we have that thinks that ShotSpotter, a technology that CPD has used for 7 years, should be removed. Many organizations, including CWB Chicago, has vowed to show how ShotSpotter is helping law enforcement, including an article from February 23rd that highlighted over the course of the first weekend that ShotSpotter was supposed to be removed. It was involved in detecting rounds from 4 different incidents where officers arrested somebody for discharging firearms, including one with a rifle. Many key arguments against ShotSpotter are practically laughable. Money's been mentioned as one principal issue, but since the announcement of the cancellation of ShotSpotter, there's been a $1.25 billion allotment for bonds that the city will issue that will cost them $2.4 billion over the next 37 years. The city also announced lawsuits against major oil companies, as well as giving hundreds of millions of dollars to migrants. While all this is important, it's only $9 million approximately is the spending cost for ShotSpotter. So I encourage all of you to do additional research in ShotSpotter and know that it is a very beneficial tool. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason M.
Hello, good evening, Commission. I first wanted to address with you how the Commission has thought about the remit or the purview of its work. The Commission's responsibility is to respond to community needs and concerns as they relate to safety by means not limited to outreach, connection building, and etc. But the Commission also has the ability to provide reports to the public about matters pertaining to public safety. They have the ability to access information and to recommend research and audits from the Office of the Inspector General. The commission should make better use of its abilities, and it should take measures urgently to stop facial and gait recognition technology and biometric surveillance, as well as all other forms of carceral and malicious surveillance. Also, end audio-visual deterrence against unhoused people, the use of so-called mosquito boxes and audio deterrent systems used to stop loitering. These devices project private interest into public space to deny people their basic physiological needs, including sleep. This is an acoustic siege on the people of this city, and that practice, along as other practices of carceral surveillance, are not evidence-based. This commission needs to affirm the fact that criminalizing survival activities, including in the sex industry and the drug industry, is not evidence-based and drives criminalization. This is universally accepted as evidence-based, and the commission should follow up by taking urgent measures to end that criminalization.
Thank you. And there's nobody else online, right? Okay. That concludes our public comment period. Thank you again to all of our speakers. We value your input. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes. Before today's meeting, draft minutes of the commission's meeting held on January 25th and the special meeting held on February 8th were shared with all commissioners. Are there any corrections to the draft minutes that have been circulated? If there are no corrections, and for the purposes of quorum, Commissioner Loizon is present, so 7 out of 7 of CCPSA commissioners are now present in person. If there are no corrections, I move to approve the minutes of the commission's meeting held on January 25th and February 8th.
Second.
I've moved and it's been seconded by Commissioner Gomez to approve the minutes of the January 25th and the February 8th meetings. Is there any debate on the motion? Hearing none, we'll now move to a vote. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Are there any nays? The ayes have it, and the motion passes. The approval of the minutes for the January 25th and the February 8th meeting are approved. We'll now move on to new business. We will begin with the election of the commission vice president. At the commission's January 25th meeting, Commissioner Gomez announced he planned to step down as vice president, and a vacancy was created for the position of vice president of the commission. Subsequently, at that meeting, Commissioner Terry was nominated to fill that vacancy. According to the commission bylaws, once a nomination is made to fill officer vacancies, the election for that position will be held at the regular meeting immediately following the meeting where the nomination was made. In accordance with the bylaws, I move to elect Commissioner Ramel Terry to the position of vice president of the commission.
Second.
I've moved and it's been seconded by Commissioner Gomez. The motion to elect Commissioner Terry to the position of vice president of the commission. Is there any debate on the motion? You have the floor.
I want to thank Commissioner Terry for stepping forward to fill this role.
Likewise, I think it's really important to note that there's not necessarily anything wrong with the commission, but rather we've been operating with a lot of hard work and efficiency. And I think I've seen a lot of leadership from everyone here that when we notice that we can't take the responsibility on, we step up as Commissioner Terry has done, or like in my case, you step down. And I think that's a sign of the good faith and positive collaboration that we've developed. So thank you, Commissioner Terry. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And I've already seen you stepped up in the month or so that you haven't officially been occupying this role, but by de facto. So thank you for all your hard work.
Any other comments? I would just like to acknowledge the hard work of now Vice President Oswaldo and soon to be Vice President Terry. It was not an easy feat to get this commission off the ground back when we had one staff person and we wrote our own press releases, and Ramel designed the flyers for the meetings, and our attendance was the people who we called in our phone book to show up to the meetings. And so I just wanted to thank you, not only as the first vice president of this commission, but also as a person who we were in the trenches with trying to pass this ordinance. So just wanted from the bottom of my heart say thank you. And also to Ramel, thank you for stepping up to the plate. This is a lot of hard work. It's, intrusive at times. Sometimes you wake up and almost a quorum of the city council accuses you of being racist and a bunch of other stuff. But you've been right there every step of the way. So I'm really excited to work with you, and would just like to say thank you. And hearing no other comments or debate on the motion, those in favor of adopting the motion to elect Commissioner Terry to the position of Vice President, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? The ayes have it, and Commissioner Ramel Terry is now the Vice President of the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. Our next order of business will be reports and updates. We'll begin by discussing an update to the police board nomination process, and for that, I'll pass it to Commissioner Troncoso.
By ordinance, whenever there's a vacancy on the police board, the commission is required to nominate candidates to fill the vacancy. The mayor then chooses candidates from the commission's list of nominees, and the city council votes on whether to confirm them. Starting tomorrow, the commission will be conducting interviews to fill several vacancies on the Chicago Police Board. The commission reached out to a wide range of people and organizations to help get the word out about these openings. Despite the recent fight over arbitration, the commission believes that the Chicago Police Board is an important part of Chicago's police accountability infrastructure and should be preserved. Our hope is that we will be voting on candidates to send to the mayor at our next commission meeting on March 21st. We look forward to updating you at that time.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? Hearing no further questions, we'll now move on to an update on the association's order, and for that, I will pass it to Vice President Terry.
So, as you know, the commission voted to approve the revisions to the Chicago Police Department Policy General Order 08-03, now entitled Prohibition on Criminal and Bias-Based Organizations at the November 2023 meeting. This policy outlines the prohibited behaviors, membership in associations with bias-based and criminal organizations for Chicago police officers. As of January 12th of this year, the revised policy is in effect for the Chicago Police Department. During the policy development and community outreach of this policy, Commissioner Loizon and I received thoughtful input from community members. We took another opportunity to incorporate this additional community feedback and pursued more revisions to this policy. These additions will strengthen this policy even further. Two additions include a new policy section entitled Reporting and Transparency, stipulating regular reporting on policy implementation, training, and enforcement. Additional criminal and bias-based organizations will be identified based on a review of the stated or published organizational mission, goals, or values.
Early this year, commissioners shared the additional recommendations with CPD. And earlier this week, Vice President Terry and I met with CPD research and development staff to discuss our suggested revisions and additions. CPD agreed with most of our recommendations. They are clarifying some language in the new section on transparency and reporting per our request for more specific information about what CPD will provide in their regular reporting. We will also schedule a community webinar to discuss the additional policy changes and answer any questions that community members might have about the policy and the new policy changes. As these revisions are incorporated and the commissioners contemplate the revisions, we will continue regular meetings with CPD to learn about this policy implementation and enforcement. We will update the community regularly as we receive this information. We look forward to continuing to develop and push forward policies that improve and impact public safety for Chicagoans. We encourage community input and feedback. Ultimately, the commission will vote on what additional changes to adopt.
Are there any questions for Commissioner Loizon or Commissioner Terry? Next, we will hear an update regarding officer wellness. For that, I'll pass it back to Commissioner Loizon.
Okay. Early this year, the commissioner shared, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's what happens when you're late. The commission hosted a hearing on officer wellness at its November 13th meeting. We received a lot of positive feedback from the community about this meeting. The IMR recently reported on CPD's wellness progress as related to the consent decree. While compliance with consent decree goals in the area of officer wellness is slow, there was positive news. CPD officers and their families are taking advantage of wellness opportunities at a greater rate than they have in the past. We were very pleased to hear that. Today, we want to provide you with an update on where we are and what our next steps will be. The commission is interested in taking a broad look at wellness and policing in Chicago. Police work is challenging, and both research and officers' experience demonstrate the impact the work has on officer wellness. However, communities need to have confidence that they are being policed by officers that are mentally and emotionally equipped to appropriately respond to the community's needs. The commission will be gathering more information about wellness opportunities and initiatives available to officers through conversations with CPD, FOP, content area specialists on wellness, reviewing the independent monitor for the consent decree reports on wellness, as well as relevant research. The commission will also work to understand the support, intervention, and supervision provided to officers who are struggling with their mental health. Today, we had a meeting with Mike Meddy from the FOP, who runs an officer wellness committee. He gave us great insight into the work he and others are doing around wellness. One of the things that we focused on in our conversation today with respect to that meeting was how community and the police need to feel confident that police officers are in a position to serve and protect their communities with the right scope of understanding about the actual communities that they serve. We talked about how police officers need to focus less on policing by statistic, specifically with respect to traffic stops, and how police officers need to focus their attention on actually serving their communities. We had a very robust conversation about that today. How does that tie into officer wellness? One of the things that was focused on is the fact that officers who are really serving the community, are in tune with their community, and want to be in the communities that they are serving, are officers that are going to feel a greater connection, and that in and of itself contributes to wellness. That was an angle on the wellness discussion that we were very pleased to have with Mike Meddy as a representative from FOP. We look forward to having more discussions like this in the future, and we will share our findings and recommendations with you.
Thank you, Commissioner Loizon. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners about officer wellness? Hearing none, I will now share a few takeaways from the commission's recent special meeting. On February 8th, the commission held a hearing on the gunshot detection technology system commonly known as ShotSpotter. We had a robust discussion, and I'd like to thank all of the panelists, commissioners, and community members who took part in that discussion. That discussion was extremely helpful and brought to light some initial considerations when it comes to the implementation of technology within the Chicago Police Department, not only for the ShotSpotter program. First, the meeting highlighted the importance of transparency about the planned use of technology that will affect the public at large and incorporate community voice on the front end of that implementation. Both department and the public should understand what the goals of any new program are and how the program or technology will be evaluated before they start to use it. That meeting also highlighted the need for the department to put policies into place to ensure the thoughtful rollout of any new technology that they plan to deploy with specific considerations given to their implications for public safety and individual privacy. This work should be done before the switch is flipped to turn on a new technology. It's also clear that consulting the community on the front end and during the rollout of anything that can have such a direct impact on people's lives is paramount. This includes any new policy strategies, expected outcomes, and evaluation criteria for these new technologies. The community should also expect full transparency during this process. And also, I would like to take this moment to address some of the comments that I made during that public meeting. Actually, not to address them, to clarify them. First, I would like to say that if people were offended by what I said, specifically with use of the word privilege, that was not meant to offend anybody. Privilege comes in many forms. You commonly hear people talk about white privilege. You hear people talk about wealthy people are privileged. But I think as a Chicagoan, one of the things that I was trying to convey in the midst of a very heated moment was that there are folks like myself who work in politics, who are a part of this commission, who exist in spaces where I'm extremely plugged into the infrastructure of this city. I'm a very well-informed person. I'm a part of different political organizations. I pay dues to different political organizations. I knock doors for candidates. But there's also a large segment of community that works 2-3 jobs, that don't have the ability to attend a 10 a.m. Wednesday city council meeting or to make their way to Malcolm X to have their voice heard in this. And what was brought to light during this ShotSpotter hearing and the previous lead up to that was that those community members wanted to be heard. There were a lot of community members who said that they wanted to get rid of ShotSpotter, and there were a lot of community members who said that they want to keep it, and there were a ton of community members who just wanted to learn more. So when I use the word privilege in this context, what I am referring to and what I am talking about is the average Chicagoan who is not plugged into this political infrastructure, the person who shows up to vote when it's election time and they make their mind up before they go into the polls. I'm talking about those folks, the working poor, the working class of the city, those folks, right? And so when I say privilege, what I'm asking for is organized groups of people like the ones that I am a part of and many folks here on this stage, many district council members and many other community members are a part of, to save space for the Chicagoan who saw this on the news and who is simply scared and wants to show up and be heard, to the Chicagoan who doesn't understand what this technology is or didn't even know it existed before this recent news barrage. And so when I say privilege, I'm not saying that to attack anybody. What I'm saying is save space for those community members. I also like to address the fact that it was recently said that this commission platformed the CEO of ShotSpotter. I would like for it to be known, and this is documented, people have heard this over and over. We were asked specifically, we want to hold the CEO of ShotSpotter accountable. So when we had our prelude meeting to our hearing, I said to the CEO of ShotSpotter, please do not send a representative. My community is asking for you to show up and be held accountable. Don't send a rep. If you send a rep or somebody else, I'm not going to seat them. That was a personal ask from me that came from community members. And so I asked them to honor that. So it wasn't about platforming him, but folks wanted to hold him accountable. And that was evidenced by the fact that people showed up with signs with his name on it directed at him. And again, this issue has been extremely polarizing in our city, and it has divided a lot of us. I'm not here to opine one way or another. On issues where this commission has a direct role to play, we take a position, we engage the council members, we engage the public, and we take a vote on that. We have no role to play in ShotSpotter whatsoever. That decision lies solely with Mayor Johnson. The city council is the body that appropriated the funds for ShotSpotter. OPSA is the body that administers it. CPD and OEMC are the bodies that use it. We have no say-so on what happens with the mayor's office. That lies with the city council and Mayor Johnson himself. What we were trying to be responsive to were community members who said that they wanted to have a hearing on this particular issue. Also, to the issue of stacking the panel. My job is to just be responsive to community members here. It's not my job to put my thumb on the scale for the company or my thumb on the scale for the group that wants to get rid of it. We're here to get to the facts and we're here to get to the bottom of it and try to be as objective as possible. Of course, I have my own opinion about this, but I have to try to do my best to be independent and let community members have their voice heard. There were no panelist members who were asked in advance, are you pro or against ShotSpotter? That was not the criteria through which we judge people who were to come and sit on this panel. The criteria through which we judge them is what is their stake in this. So Tenny Gross, you represent a community violence intervention organization who uses this technology. I don't want to know whether you're for or against ShotSpotter. That's not my business, but you have an important voice in this. Will you sit on this panel? Daryl Smith, you're a violence interrupter who's on the ground every day. I'm not asking you whether or not you're for or against this technology. What I'm asking you is, do you use this technology and do you have experience with it being a violence interrupter? That's the criteria that was laid to everybody, the inspector general and everybody else. At that hearing, you all heard live the same way we did that these folks' opinion. And so I am not beyond reproach. I'm not beyond apologizing. There are folks who have reached out to me, and I've had several meetings about this particular issue. And if you reach out to me now, you will have my ear. I will make the time to meet with you about this. But I did want to go on the record and clarify the things that happened with that meeting, and also that our commission has not taken a stance on this particular issue. But what the stance that I will always take, whether I'm in this position or any other position, is one of the folks who are the most impacted have a right to have their voice heard. And that's something I will never, ever apologize for. That's something that I believe in my core. It's a principle of mine, and I want my practices to match my principles. And so if there are people who are directly impacted, I always want to lift those voices up. So thank you to everybody who's engaged with us with this issue. Mayor Johnson, since that hearing, has since made the decision that he wants to discontinue the use of ShotSpotter. Now it's our job as a commission to engage our community. Whether ShotSpotter leaves or stays is not the job of this commission. As the officer pointed out earlier, the thing that I'm most concerned about, and that I didn't get a chance to really get into at that meeting, is the fact that in the 6th and 7th district, you have 18% and 21% respectively of gunshots that have a corresponding 911 call. Again, as I said this before, whether you're an abolitionist or whether you're a person who makes the cookies at the CPD bake sale, that should concern you. That should concern all of us. When you dial 911, it is not just for the police. When you dial into OEMC, it is for EMS. It's for the police. It's for help. It's a line for assistance, for emergency services. There are people, and we've seen case after case of this, who get shot and there is no corresponding 911 call. What do we now do as a community? What do? Mayor Johnson has made his mind up. It's now our job to engage our community and make sure that people are getting the help that they need. And that's where our commission's focus, as long as I'm here, will be at. And I think my fellow commissioners would agree with me on that. And so that will be my challenge to the district council members here, to my commissioners who are here on this panel, to any new commissioners that are seated here in the coming months, is that we really hone in and focus on how do we get help to the victims in our community. So with that, I will open this up to commissioners who have any questions or comments on that hearing. Commissioner Nellis.
Testing. Oh, there we go. So I just wanted to say I had to attend last month's meeting virtually, so I was not here physically present. It did limit me a little bit. I was watching online. I think that I'm glad that we held the hearing. I think it is very important. It's something that's of significant interest, and there are a variety of opinions. I think any honest analysis of the situation would show that there are reasons for it, and there's also reasons against it, and that, you know, a dispassionate, very difficult thing to do given the real harm that can be done on both sides of this. But a dispassionate analysis of that was important to be done. The only thing I will say, and this is an observation from online, I do feel that we could have done a better job presenting both sides. When I understand the panel selection was selected for reasons not related to whether they were for it or against it, but at the end of the day, it was a panel of 4 people that were speaking for it and 1 against. And it didn't come off, at least for me, virtually, very unbiased or well-rounded. I don't think that was the intention of anybody on the commission to do that. I will actually go so far to say I'm certain that wasn't the intention. And I think, again, I'm still glad that we did it. But I do think when convening a panel, it is important to have roughly equal numbers of people who are going to bring critical comment toward it and analysis, and supportive comment and analysis.
Any other questions or comments?
I just want to quickly echo the sentiments of President Driver in terms of wanting to elevate the voices that are often not heard, that are not organized, that are the most impacted. And I want to reiterate something about what happened after that hearing. In order for us to be heard, we have to be willing to listen. And I think that was a large challenge of what we saw at that last hearing. Every single voice matters. And this commission, we are not always well liked. We are not always receiving kudos for the work that we are doing. But one thing that can be said is that we still listen, whether we are having disagreements, dissenting opinions. The importance is if you want to be heard, if your issue is that important, you also must listen. And listening to those who do not have the opportunities to come to these meetings, who do not have the opportunities to attend city council meetings and all the things that have already been pointed out, they still need to be heard. And no one gets to be the loudest voice in the room, drowning out another. We have to listen to each other. And as long as myself, and I believe everyone else that are here is a part of this, we will be listening to all voices. And we will not allow any voice to be silenced because someone disagrees.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Gomez.
So I think one thing that I will really remember about the meeting that we had was actually a response that Mr. Tenny Gross had to a question that I asked about the possibility of technology that is not held just within the police department that seeks to do what ShotSpotter has been suggesting that they do when it comes to responding to shots. Another thing that I remember from that meeting is the number of community members that came and spoke about their own stories and family members that they've lost because no one was there to assist them. There was no 911 response. And so I won't speak about whether or not there was a voice that was loudest or whether or not the panel was stacked. I've been kicked out of a lot of public meetings myself for being a protester. But what I will speak about is the fact that we have to imagine something beyond just what one company is willing to provide us. And I think a lot of the attention has been focused on whether or not something worked, on whether or not something was worth it, and on whether or not that money was specifically allocated properly. We can debate on different sides whether or not ShotSpotter was saving lives or not. But now I think there's a different fight to be had, and I hope all people on both sides can be smart enough and organized enough to realize that we will continue to have the same need, responding to people when there is someone that is seriously hurt, whether it's by a gunshot or by some other kind of violent act. Companies don't have to be the only ones that do that. It doesn't have to be one company. And as this commission has proven, there's a lot of imagination in the room and a lot of people that are willing to engage with that. So to the district councils in the room, to the commission staff, to the commissioners, to Mayor Johnson, I hope we don't leave this debate with simply saying ShotSpotter pro or against, because I don't see it that way. I think that is a narrow view of what could be the true solution to save lives, right? Technology is complicated. I can't speak about how CPD necessarily is using ShotSpotter because I still have a lot to learn despite all the research that we did. But I can say that in general, there's a lot of things about technology and a lot of its impact that we still don't understand, but we can always do a better job at creating and buying technology with a clear purpose and with a lot of transparency. So it's not just about ShotSpotter, it's about what we create that actually saves lives. I hope that was concrete enough.
Yeah, I'll just say, building off of Commissioner Gomez's point, what will the next technology be? What will the next fight be? I think, ShotSpotter is part of an outcome of a larger problem of response rates and response times rather in our city. I myself have been a 911 caller to a shooting that had a half an hour response time that, some areas would take that, in some areas that's above average. And I just really think that we don't lose sight of police response times being so crucial in our city. And, that means we have to examine workforce allocation. That means we have to examine data. What data are we getting? And I just really think, as we don't lose sight of what's the next fight, I see that as a place that I hope our attention goes in the future.
Sorry, one really quick thing that was actually what I meant to say. I think one group of people that have been trying to make their voice heard, but sometimes we've lost sight of, are the police officers. And I appreciate all the police officers that have been coming to speak about the issue. That's a perspective that we hardly hear from. And I learned a lot about how technology can not just make things safer for people when they themselves are hurt, but for people when they're responding. And I think that is something that is not just ShotSpotter. There's a lot of things that we can do to make sure that people are responding in a way that's safe and that is not actually making situations more dangerous. We don't have to make ShotSpotter the only focus of that fight, because on both ends, we need police officers that feel equipped to respond, but also community members that don't fear for that response to come.
Hearing no further questions, we'll now move on to miscellaneous business, which is basically me just plugging the commission's social media handles. So to connect with the commission via social media, you can find us on Facebook at /Chicago CCPSA, or you can just search Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. On Instagram and Twitter or X, we are CCPSA_Chicago, and on YouTube, we're Chicago CCPSA. The commission's next regular meeting are typically on the last Thursday of the month, but next month will be slightly different due to both religious and CPS holidays, and to ensure that the meeting can achieve a quorum. The commission's next regular meeting will be a week earlier than previously scheduled. So the next commission meeting will be on Thursday, March 21st, 2023, 6:30 p.m. at Kennedy King College. That's Thursday, March 21st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. at Kennedy King College. 2024, sorry. Please don't go to a meeting that started last year. Wow. We recognize that this meeting is scheduled to occur on the same date and around the same time as the police board's regular meeting, and we apologize for that inconvenience that this causes to those of you who regularly attend both meetings live. If there is no further business is there any further business before the commission? Hearing none, this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you. Like a record.
I don't know.
7:15. We just gave you back